Hello, welcome to another tonalist landscape oil painting demonstration. This is your painter in residence. I'm Francis McCarthy, and the painting I'm bringing you today is called Into Twilight. It's a 4x6. I painted very recently. I actually painted it for the show I currently have up at the Yvonne Russ Gallery here in Whangarei, New Zealand. Just pop on in if you're in the area. You're probably not in the area, seeing as I'm like 14,000 miles away from the U.S. And most of my views are coming from the U.S., although I get people from Europe, all over the world. Hello, welcome all of you. I wanted to get something up today. It's been very hectic because last week I had to get this whole show together. And I'm still tired from that. It's just a ton of work. And then today I've been working, I've been here at a house, and I'm working on, I'm setting up a new studio in the backyard. So still going to keep the one going at the Quarry Art Center, but this one is going to be dedicated to do a larger work and also as a backup. Yeah, so that's been a fun project to getting that going, but there's still a lot more work to get it set up. I just got the power in there today. So anyway, you don't want to hear about my stuff, my life. You get your own life. Why did I do this painting? Well, I have painted this scene before, and I'm real happy about aspects of it, but it was larger too, so why paint something larger than do something smaller? Well, I definitely know what I did before that was not right, and that was too many sky holes. And the other thing is, but it had really gorgeous color, and I had a very fancy ornate frame that I wanted to put in the show, and I needed a 4x6 landscape to put in it. I have some 4x6 figures, but I just wanted to keep the show to be dedicated to landscapes only. I didn't want to muddy the water, and so I did this landscape. And the great news is it sold the first night. I had a good feeling it would too. It was made for the frame, it was made for the show, and it's a very beautiful little painting. And hopefully you'll enjoy watching me do it. Now, what do you got to keep in mind when you're doing a little 4x6? Maybe we could just talk about that. Everything's got to be, I mean, no matter what size you're painting, you need to simplify everything. And I mean really simplify everything. A lot of amateur painters, they just have this idea, and a few professionals that actually sell work, I'll say that. They just have this idea that the more detail, the better. But that's not the way landscape painting works. Frankly, the things that make the painting beautiful are the forms, the composition, and the color. Of course, balance of values, balance in general would mean good composition. I think all that goes under that umbrella. I know this had a strong composition, but something like too many sky holes. It was just, and I had simplified it last time I did it. You could find it on the channel if you're real industrious, but not enough. And I still have a painting up in my studio. It's a saleable painting, but I look at it and I go, it's too many holes. So that's part of your simplification process. And in fact, the smaller you're working, the less things like sky holes you want, the less little tweaky bushes, or if there's hills in the distance with little trees on them, you don't have to paint those little trees. You can just paint the hills as a gestural sort of thing. And so now I did this with a fairly small brush. I think that's a 0 in my hands. I'm painting with black, and I believe that's Mars black. It could be ivory black. It doesn't really matter, because the whole painting's done in one go. On top of a would be in the States called masonite. Out here they call it hardboard. Now it is coated with a 2 layers of transparent gesso, so there's a buffer between the oil paint and the board itself. That's pretty important because it is actually very pleasurable painting on naked wood, but the problem with doing that is over time the board will tend to absorb your painting, so that's not a good idea. It's not good practices. Don't do it. the other thing is, like, you could use the reference didn't change. The reference had a lot of complexity in it, but my mindset when I'm working very small does change. So it's all about just keeping things really simple, working quickly. I mean, you could paint the Sistine Chapel on the head of a pin if you wanted. I mean, you'd be using, actually, if you wanted to do that, you couldn't even use a one hair brush for that. You'd have to do some nano brush or something. Anyway, don't do it. that would be that would be quite a project, though. A Sistine Chapel on the head of a pin. That'd get you in the Guinness Book of World Records for sure. Anyway, you want to keep the expressiveness. You've got the composition, hopefully, and the expressiveness. Most of that's going to be in your brushwork and your color. So you notice I'm not using like a little tiny sable brush. I'm using a brush that's actually scaled pretty well. If I was doing this as a 12 by 18, I'd be doing a lot of that work with a 4 or a 6. In this case, I believe that's probably a 1, and it's probably a Robert Simmons. Yeah, I did do a little premix on the colors, as I always do. Get some nice golden tones going. It's basically golds, reds, black. This painting took less than an hour, and that's great. I actually really like doing little 4x6s and 3.5x5s and little square like 3.5x3.5s and things like that. I've got away from it. In fact, I didn't have anything in my inventory for that frame, so I've said about doing this painting, but I'd like to do more, and I'd like to, and I had, but I was going through, if you look at on the channel, I think there is a playlist for minis, and I don't consider a 5x7 a mini. It's just big enough to get in there and do a proper painting. But with this sort of thing, you're going to be leaning more into the abstraction. Now, I don't think I've done very many little mini 4x6s or 3.5x5s on the smooth board. At least there were landscapes. So it was quite fun, and it was, like I said, you can see very gestural. Now, you can see I've left a few sky holes there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we'll say 8. Maybe you could argue 9. I had like 25 in the other painting, something like that. And actually what's really amazing is that I had reduced that number from a greater number before. So I was cognitive of it, I was aware of it, but not aware enough to actually save the day. So this kind of scene too, by the way, I like to do is these little paths, little roads. I have quite a lot of reference for this thing. I'll give you a tip. A lot of times I take this kind of reference right through the window of a car when I'm going down these old country roads, That's a great tip for you. You'd be surprised. You might see some glare or reflection off the window. It won't be an award-winning photo, but what you're really looking for in your painting is a good composition, to me, or ideas that spark a good composition would be way more accurate. I take a lot of liberties with every photo. I'm not interested in making copies of photos. I'm interested in making paintings. But I use the photo reference to spark my imagination. I found that if I'm making paintings strictly for my imagination, it's hard for me to develop things. It's hard for me to change or move out of real staid compositions. So I think as artists, we all have certain compositions that we really like, that we know have worked in previous paintings, that might be tree on the right, tree in the distance on the left, little road down the middle, some hills in the distance. You could do an L shape, a C shape, an O, an S shape, any kind of thing that you like, but you bring those archetypal compositions along with you when you're working with a reference. So you go, oh, I could push this more into an S thing. I could put some emphasis on this shape or that shape, or eliminate that tree or that house or what have you, And actually, funny enough, I don't know if many of you do figurative stuff, but It's very much the same for, I'm really adept with the figure. You wouldn't know it because I don't feature much on this channel. It's pretty much landscape-based channel, but when it comes to figures, I recommend learning every part of the anatomy. You know, your nose, your cheekbone, your hands, your forearms, upper arms, chest, legs, all of it. You know, you want to have and trained yourself to um, have mastered an archetypal form. That would be an archetypal forearm or an archetypal nose or archetypal pair of lips. And you can use that archetype to help inform and influence your work while you are drawing or painting. So especially if it's a little bit obscure, like you say you're drawing someone's face, but they have really compressed lips, and you really can't really tell what's going on. Well, you can bring what your impressions of what you see there. You can bring in your archetypal lips that you've taught yourself, and merge the two together. Yeah, and come up with something good. And I very much do the same thing with the landscapes. There's an archetypal tree in my mind, or actually several different types, because there's a lot of different types of forms of trees, you know, but that meets the reference, and fun ensues. Now check it out. I've actually knocked out all those sky holes. And that's another tip. Actually, a lot of people have bailed right now. They go, no, he just burbles on. I'm going to go over and watch me another Bob Ross. He's just burbling. Yeah, well, you'd be sorry. Yeah, you'd be sorry that you left. You took off. Because I'm going to lay a tip on you right now. And I've laid this tip on people on the channel before. But how do you deal with this sky hole thing, right? You can use the lightest tone of your trees instead of a sky hole. You can see how much better this looks when I pop that reddish tone in. You can tell it's trees or leaves or something, but it's not that bright yellow from the sky coming through. So I eliminated almost every single sky hole. I'd say we maybe have 4 or 5 left. And I don't tend to count those real big areas like on each side, you know, underneath as sky holes. You could, though. I mean, if you want to get technical, which gosh knows I'm not really that technical. I'm more into insights and you know, technique and technical mastery should come about as a byproduct of doing a lot of work. It doesn't work the other way around. You don't master a technique and then create work. You learn enough about a technique to start creating work, and then you create a bunch of work, and that's how you perfect your technique. So many amateurs and even journeyman painters they're fixated on technique, and that's because it's something you can approach, it's you can understand. If I start laying abstract concepts on you, you go, oh, well, that doesn't mean anything to me. What the heck are you talking about? You know, but what kind of brush are you using? How many strokes did you do? How many strokes should I do? What colors? What colors? What's on your palette? Those are things that fall under the aegis of technique. You know, those things don't really matter, because I could have made this painting beautiful with any different bunch of colors I wanted to. A minimal palette, you know, extensive palette. It's the experience, it's the practice that informs the technique. Notice too that I would decide to go a little beefier, a little brighter on that sky. Just getting some payoff in there. Ooh. Lots of payoff. I'm actually real happy with this little painting. I'd like to do this scene yet again. Maybe I'll do it as like a 24-36. That's what I'm working towards. And now I haven't done a lot of those, so you know, I'll be videotaping the process as I always do. But how teachy. Oh, here's another little thing you see I'm doing. That is pretty much almost straight up cadmium red. And look how it's just giving us a lot of umptiousness, you know. I love to do that, and sometimes I love to do that even in a landscape that's almost completely green. You know, pop in a couple notes of straight up cad red, just gives you a bit of pop. bit of zing. And if it's mostly surrounded by green, you don't even notice the CAD red. All you notice is that things seem a little zingier. There's the frame. There it is. That's what I built it for. Hey, anyway, thank you for joining me today. This has been in the live area for a while, so I may go ahead and release the live version of this since all the members have seen it that wanted to see it, and that gives you a taste of what the content in the members area is like. I've been wanting to do that again for a while, so I'll do it, and you can look for that and enjoy it. Anyway, until I come back with another video, do me a favor, do a solid for me. Take good care of yourself, your family, all your loved ones. Be patient with people that have different sets of beliefs than your own, and stay out of trouble.